This is a 20-pound propane tank, but it will soon be a ball mill. Welcome to the Glacial Gold Hunter. Let's get to it. Now some of you out there might be thinking, what's a ball mill? Well, you know how I like to crush up pieces of quartz that I find? A ball mill does that automatically. The first thing I gotta do though is cut the top off. But before I go cutting into a propane tank, I wanna make sure there's no propane left in it, because if there is, I'm not looking to be a hero. So the first thing I'm gonna do before I do anything is get the top valve to come off, because then I know the tank is empty before I start cutting into it or anything. And the way you do that is you tie it to a tree like a hostage.
I'm all tied up. I'm tied up.
Good way to tie up your hostage is with a ratchet strap. All right, so I got 2 straps on there. The idea is to hold it tight to the tree so you got the leverage to screw that off. So I got a piece of pipe here. I don't know if it's long enough, but it slides right over the fitting. That'll give me some leverage. I'm gonna have to get this tighter. There we go. There we go. Hear that pressure? You hear that? Even this rusted old tank had a little pressure in there. So you don't want to just drill into it, spark it, explode. So now that that's off, I can fill it full of water, and I'm not gonna have any risk of exploding because I know all the gases are purged out. Just kind of curious, I'm gonna do something really dumb and dangerous. Don't try this at home. There is fire coming out of it. It's not an explosion, but there's fire. 2 hours later, and it's still going. That's amazing. Okay, now that our tank is purged and we're not gonna explode, I need to cut the top off because I gotta be able to get all the rocks and stuff in there. So I think I'm just gonna cut all the way around and lift the lid off like so, but then I'm gonna have to have a way to attach it back together. So I got these little pieces of angle iron, and what I think I'll do, kind of put them up like that, and then I'll be able to bolt them together so the lid will be completely shut. But I need enough room for that to attach. Then I'll make sure I have it nice and even all along. It's not brain surgery precision, but it should be close enough. And I'm gonna draw some lines here just so I know how to realign it perfectly in place. So now we buzz. So now I can throw anything I want in there. We also need to address like where to get the balls or rods to put in there, and we'll get to that later. But first we need to get a way to get this thing to spin. That is not my area of expertise. Now to get it to spin, I picked up this old dryer motor. It's a lower RPM, high torque motor, and I'm hoping that that'll do the job to get it to turn. I'm gonna try to figure out a way to attach this wheel to it, and that'll be like the driving force. But that's gonna take some thinking. So we'll get back to that.
That's a bad idea.
Now with our tank here, I cleaned off some spots so the welds would stick, and then I took those angle iron brackets and decided to TIG weld them into place. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wow, he has a TIG welder. He must be good at welding. But if you were to think that, you'd be absolutely correct, because look at these beautiful welds.
Gorgeous.
It was a royal pain to weld, and I have no idea why. 2 dissimilar metals? I don't know. Found out why my welding was so bad. The hose was cracked. Wasn't getting any gas to the metal. No wonder it looks like a stack of turds. Now, the thing I'm gonna try to tackle right now is the balls that I'm gonna put in there. You can buy balls for ball mills, but I wanna try to make my own. Now, there's 2 ways that I can think of to make the balls. One is with chunks of steel like this. Now, this is a steel rod, big steel rod, and I could just cut up sections of steel rod and put those in there, and that would be a rod mill. That would probably be the easiest way to go about it. But why do things the easy way when you could do it the harder, more complicated, and less effective way? So I'm going to try lost foam casting. Now on my other YouTube channel I do bronze casting, but in this case I'm going to do some cast iron. And when you pour cast iron onto foam, the foam dissolves immediately, taking the space and shape of the foam. That's a theory, but lost foam casting is pretty new to me as well. Now for source metal I'm just going to use this cast iron pipe. It's far too big to put in my crucible, but cast iron's brittle. And I know what you're thinking. If it's that brittle, aren't my balls going to break in the ball mill? I don't know. We'll see. Now, these cast iron pipes are heavily coated with rust, and I don't think the rust melts very well. But inside, it's steely, gray, crystalline cast iron. I think that melts, but I think when we do this, we're going to be left with a bunch of rust residue from the edges. Now to melt the cast iron, I'm going to be using my Vevor 12 kilogram furnace. It's got this dual burner design and it gets a lot of heat in there. So I'm actually able to melt some alloys of cast iron.
Ready?
So we did get a sphere-esque shape, definitely not a clean casting, but will it work well enough to crush rocks in a ball mill? Probably, maybe. Now like I thought, metal shrinkage was pretty severe in the top part of it, and that could have been sand collapse too. Spheres are incredibly difficult to cast. I didn't figure it would be perfect, and it's not, but it's interesting all the same. Let me clean it up a bit. So with that method, I ended up with 4 shriveled up cast iron balls. They aren't exactly spheres, but they are pretty massive, and I think they will crack rocks. I just need more of them. Now, there's another method I'm going to try with the piece of steel rod that I got, and that's forging. Now, I'm not really set up for blacksmithing, but this kiln also acts as a forge, the way it was designed. It's still really, really hot, but it's got these stands so it can set on its side like so, and you can put your pieces of steel in there and it heats it up just like a forge. So what you just witnessed was about my very first attempt at ever blacksmithing, and I learned a few very important lessons. 1, do not put the forge directly in front of your workspace. It is hot. You may very well lose all your arm hair, at least singe it real bad. 2, a good pair of tongs is essential. This is not a good pair of tongs, barely functional. The tongs that came with it are even less functional for something this size. It just kept squirting out. And 3, blacksmithing on your knees is not feasible. I'm definitely not going to do that making a dozen of these. That's about the best I can do with my setup. Not great. So after all that, I've got 6 misshapen balls. I'll work on getting more, but first let's see if these will even crush a pebble. I think we solved the mystery of the misshapen balls. Now, as I was taking out the foam that I wasn't able to cast, look what happened. As I cast one iron ball, the radiant heat was so much that it was starting to misshapen the foam through the sand. So I didn't even have a chance of getting a sphere. This is probably what I was starting with. And that makes a lot of sense. It looks exactly the same. So if I had done these one at a time, I probably would have got a lot better result. But because I was trying multiple, it was just too much heat, too close, and it just didn't give me a good starting point from the beginning. I mean, look it. It's perfect match. Even through failure, you learn. Or better yet, you find a brother-in-law who has access to old bearings. Now these are big steel bearings that they use for conveyor belts or something, I don't really know, but they're worn out for bearings, but they might work pretty dang well for a ball mill. And they're steel. Probably a little bit better than what I made. A lot easier too. Now I kind of need to figure out how I'm going to have this thing rotate. So what I did is I took these little caster wheels here and I screwed them upside down on some boards. So what I'm hoping I can do is just set my chamber there and then have my propane tank rotate like that. We're going to have to fiddle with it. But that's kind of my idea for that. Now the motor is a whole other problem. Now my dryer motor is a problem because I don't know anything about motors. This mess of wires is what it plugs into. Got all these wires that plug into the motor like that, and what I was hoping to do is cut these off somewhere and putting it in a regular plug like that.
That's not how it works.
But I don't know which wire goes where, and I don't know how to figure that out. So I got something to learn. There's just so many wires. Why are there so many wires? I study rocks, not motors. I got this ohms meter thing here, but I don't even know how to use that. Okay, executive decision. I gotta cut these wires and get them exposed. Oh no. Okay, so now, what do I do here? So I've been doing a lot of research and I think I've come to the conclusion that a dryer motor is not gonna work for the project. It's not gonna be my best option anyway. First off, it's way too complicated for me. I just can't figure it out. Now from what I understand, these motors are hard to get to work on variable speed because you can't just change the voltage, you have to change the frequency. I don't know how to do that at all. So what I think a better option is gonna be is a treadmill motor. Plus, it's amazingly easy to find treadmills for free.
Americans are not winning their battle against obesity.
And here we have one. I got a treadmill. And I found this completely free on Facebook Marketplace. They just gave it away. And if we look here, we see the motor and everything here. Now a treadmill motor is a DC motor. I couldn't tell you what the difference is, but apparently it's easier for the variable speed on a DC motor. There's a ton of YouTube videos of people using these for tools like lathes and belt grinders or drill presses and all kinds of stuff like that. Otherwise I have to figure out how this whole unit kind of works together. That is really scary looking. I don't know what all that is. But I figure if this thing can pull a 300-pound fat guy around on the treadmill, it can turn my little drum. So I'm gonna dink around with this and figure out what I can do with it. So update, I took all the electronics and everything off of the treadmill and I attached them to this platform I built. It's just made out of 2x4s and 2x6s. Got this thing here, I don't know what it is, but it needed to be plugged in to run. I got my control board here, which I need that to run. The power outlet and the motor. And I see guys on YouTube and they use treadmill motors for a lot of different projects. And they'll often use this pulse width modulator thing to control the speed. Well, I hooked it up and I tried to do everything just like I saw in the video, and I immediately blew the fuse of my MC2100 control board. Just died. Didn't know what happened. Took me a long time to figure out the fuse was blown. So I don't know why, but I figured I'm not going to use this. So I reattached all the wires. Now the top of my treadmill is my control board. And it actually works. See? Now, the most difficult part for me is trying to figure out how to actually mount this motor and get the gears from here to there. I just want to get this to spin this. I am not an engineer, it is not intuitive, and I don't know how to do it. But what I did is I got these sprockets and I welded it to the face of the motor there. I got another sprocket on my axle here, my drive shaft, and I got a chain that'll hopefully go from one to the other. But we should be getting pretty close. I realize though I have no idea how to cut and reassemble a chain, so back to YouTube University. You can learn anything on YouTube. So I got this little chain breaking tool here that helped me undo the links and redo them, and I got the chain fitted kind of, like that's kind of loose. You guys can let me know if that's too loose, but it's all set. And if I have this all geared right, it should work at this point. It looks like it'll work. The only thing left to do is to turn it on. So it plugs in like so. I turn it on, and when I hit start, it should go. Kind of works. Kind of bounced around a little bit, but it's empty. So maybe when it's full, it'll work better. All my welds are just tacked at this point, so I'm gonna reinforce those, fill it up, and then we'll go. All right, so that's all welded up. That should hold securely. Loading and unloading this thing might be a bit of a pain, but hopefully not as much of a pain as crushing the rocks. Throw our bearings in there. Whoa, is it gonna be loud. Now for material, I've been waiting to crush this. This is a bag of material that my buddy Dean gave me, and it comes from the quartz veins in Minnesota, a secretive gold mine. Pretty hush-hush, I don't know exactly where, but if you look at it, it's all crushed quartz, and this is a point where it gets really hard to crush it any smaller by hand. You get a bunch of material like this and it acts like a snowshoe. So it's really hard to get it smaller, but it needs to be smaller to get the gold out of. Now, if you look at this quartz, you see it's dirty. It's got all this oxidation, all this different colorings, and that's great. That's what you want to see in a quartz vein. And the quartz veins in northern Minnesota, they weren't super profitable with gold, but there is gold. So I'm anxious to see if we can get any of the gold out. And that's what the ball mill's for. So we're gonna load it with this and just let it run and see if it pulverizes it into a panable material. I have no idea how much is too much, but we'll try that. Certainly couldn't hold any more than that. This has been a long time in the making. Man, it'd be disappointing if this didn't work at all. Disappointing, but not surprising. Okay. I went on a Reddit group and asked for some advice on how to make a ball mill out of a propane tank, and they were like, just look it up online. I'm sure somebody's done it before. Pretty sure nobody's done this before. Remember, if the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy. Uh-oh. You gotta be kidding. That's heavier than a 300-pound fat guy. Come on.
More power.
It doesn't work. Apparently it's too much weight. Let's take some out. So we took out a whole bunch of the bearings and some of the material. All right, take two. Come on. Oh, it wants to go? Come on. Oh, it's binding up. See that? It won't sit flat on the track. So maybe the motor is just shot. I mean, it was a free treadmill. It runs kind of wonky as it is. I thought for sure it'd be able to turn that, but even if it does have the power to turn it, it's not sitting square in the track. I need something to hold it so it doesn't jostle around. And I think the propane tank was just kind of a failed idea from the start. I've seen real small models where people will take a pipe like this and it sits even on a track and they put a belt around it, and that can spin probably a lot more smoothly than a ball mill. So maybe I just need a complete redesign. As badly as I wanted this thing to work, I just don't think there's a way that I can get it to. Not with my engineering knowledge, not with my engineering abilities. However, I learned a whole lot about a whole lot of things trying to build this thing. And I think we have a better way to do it if we try it again another time. If there's an engineer who wants to build a ball mill with me, just let me know in the comments. You bring the knowledge, I'll bring the material. How about that? We still got a whole bunch of ore to crush, and I got a whole bunch more that I want to crush. So we got to get this figured out. Maybe not today, but eventually. Thanks for coming along. Please leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Come on back for the next one. Bye-bye. By the way, I did just check a handful of that ore. There's definitely gold in it.